In Unit 4, we continue with our study of Chapter 2, this pivotal chapter describing the covenant lawsuit with numerous illustrations of how Israel had broken their relationship to God. Those covenant stipulations, which were laid out in the Decalogue and the other portions of the Pentateuch, Israel had abandoned. The nation that had the one true God had abandoned that one true God for gods that were nothingness, ineffective. Later in chapter 10, we'll talk about the satire on idolatry, showing the futility of the idols themselves. And for people to worship them was a futile act. But he continues with the outlining of this covenant indictment, utilizing other illustrations to show the absurdity of Israel's following other deities. So they had forsaken the one true God. And in verse 20, which begins our second portion of chapter 2, he uses other illustrations about this absurdity. One is very apropos to our era of gender identity issues in our world of people trying to understand personal identity and with a focus on gender issues and the LGBTQ world that we live in. It's not unusual. The ancient Near Eastern world struggled with the same issues that we struggle with today. But in chapter 2, verse 20, there's an interesting play on ancient Near Eastern religion, where he says, long ago, I broke your yoke, I tore off your bonds. But you said instead, God had set Israel free. But you said, I will not serve, for on every high hill and under every green tree you have lain down as a harlot. That is, they had prostituted themselves in their relationship to other religions rather than being faithful to the religion of the one true God, Yahweh, God of Israel. Though he planted them as a choice vine, a faithful seed, they had turned away and become degenerate shoots of a foreign vine, very much the way Isaiah plays on Israel's history in the vineyard chapter 5 in the book of Isaiah. So he calls upon them to wash themselves, like Isaiah does in chapter 1, of the stain of their iniquity. But they would claim that they weren't defiled and didn't need cleansing. And he would say, Jeremiah, how can you say I'm not defiled? I have not gone after the Baals. Look at your way in the valley, see what you've done. You're a swift young camel entangling your ways. You're like a wild donkey. He compares Israel's sensual pursuit of idolatry in the manner in which wild animals pursue their mates in the wilderness, sniffing after the wind, the absurdity. And then at the end of that section, he goes on then to again dress down the leadership. Verse 26, in the manner that a thief is ashamed when he is discovered, so the house of Israel is ashamed. They, their kings, their princes, their priests, their prophets. Again, all the leadership of the nation had failed in their relationship to God, and as a result had experienced shame. That shamefulness is exemplified in their idolatry. So verse 27 is very poignant play on the world of idol worship, where he says, who say to a tree, you are my father, and who say to a stone, you gave me birth. In ancient Near Eastern imagery, wood forms such as that of the Asherah were symbols of female deities. Stone forms, the matzebah, which are sometimes 18 inches to 2 feet tall, and then sometimes multiple feet tall, sometimes 8 or 10 feet high stones, symbols of male deities. And yet Israel was ascribing female identity to male images and male imagery to female images of idolatry. And therefore they have turned their backs on God and have done that which is totally absurd. So he asks, "But where are your gods which you made for yourselves? Let them arise and save you when judgment comes." So why do you contend with me, he says, back hearkening to the contention, this word reeve in Hebrew, the covenant lawsuit form. Israel had abandoned God, turned to that which was destructive as well as unprosperous in their day. Rejection of God and his ways would lead to vanity in the experience of Israel and ultimately to judgment.